Now I'm just going to show you a quick and easy way to use a slab, right? So we're doing an animal project. Some of you might have very round pieces. Some of you might have very long, narrow pieces. However it works out, I just want to give you some alternatives to throwing or coil building, right? It's building with slabs. One of the great ways to work with slabs is by using what we call bisque molds. And these are located right above where the wax is. If you remember where we pulled out the wax for glazing, there's a bin above it. Actually, follow me with your eyes real quick. Right over here, you'll find bisque molds, lots of them, and magic socks, which we're gonna talk about in a moment. All right. So, here we go. So if I'm going to make maybe a round creature or maybe a domed creature, right? We've got these great bisque bowls, and I'm going to first do one where I lay the clay in, and this is called a slump mold, when you lay the clay in. When you put the clay on the outside of a mold, that's called a hump mold or a drape mold. So we call them hump and slump. Okay, so for my slump mold, I'm going to place my bowl. And again, I don't want to use the edges of my slab because those are sometimes not as strong. I'm also going to double check my slab for strength. You can find sometimes, this is something that I should have mentioned earlier, I guess, but after you've rolled a slab somewhere, you'll find that the canvas is quite damp, and that can make it sticky. So if you move to a drier spot, you'll have more luck with being able to lift those slabs. Another thing is that you'll have canvas texture in your clay, which isn't the end of the world, but it's an unintentional texture, and I like to make sure that all the textures that I use are intentional. So I'm going to take the kind of canvas texture in this slab, and I'm going to work it out with my serrated rib. So I'm just doing a light draw with my serrated rib, and then I'm going to take my silver rib, my smooth silver rib, and work that in the opposite direction. And that way, I'm smoothing the slab. I'm also strengthening the grain, again back to the grain, so that my slab is strong, and it makes it look pretty. So that's kind of cool. You could also, at this point, if you want to add a texture, you can roll a texture into the piece, which is kind of fun. Before you build, you can also do that after you build. Okay, so we're doing a slump mold first. So this is a footed bowl so that I can slump it in there easily. And it also has a freed curve. You can't do a slump mold with a cupped curve. Even a supported curve is tough. A freed curve really helps with both the putting the slab in and getting it out. So I need to cut this larger than the bowl, and I'm just gonna estimate it because we don't want to do any math. There you go. Scraps, remember these are hand building scraps. They go in to feed Raoul. All right, now I'm going to take my slab and I'm going to kind of drape it over my hand a little bit so that it starts to get a little bit of dent in it. Then I'm going to put the bisque mold over before I flip the slab in. That tends to just help get it in there easily, as opposed to just taking the whole big slab and dumping it over the top. Where's my magic sock? I just had one. Just a moment. Rats. Might have to edit that. Okay, magic sock. So now, right, I've got this slab that's too big for the bowl. I'm going to hold up an edge and then pounce it down with the magic sock. Again, hold up the edge, pounce it down. I want to free it from that edge so it doesn't tear. I maybe made the slab a little bigger than I needed to. Sometimes cutting them down helps. Picking it up. So the magic sock works so well because it spreads out the pressure. If I press in here with my fingers, I'm gonna get, I can poke holes in it, which I don't want to do. Instead, I've got this nice soft sock called magic socks because they work magically. right? You thought, really, Al, are you gonna be able to get that slab in that bowl? Yeah, I am. Anyway, so now I'm just kind of pouncing in with that magic sock, right? And so the interior of that is set pretty nicely. A little bit of fraying on the edges, nothing I'm too worried about. So now I'm going to go and I'm gonna cut around that. So I've got my banding wheel, put a banding wheel down, and now I'm going to bring my knife up to the edge, but I wanna be a little bit over the edge so that I can still compress that edge down and give it some strength as I'm going around. And as this extra clay releases, the fit in there will really snug up nice. There we go. Pop that out. Okay, and as you can see, there's some fraying that kind of happened from the stretch. And so I'm just going to go in and compress that down, right? Just like we compressed rims when we were throwing bowls, doing the same thing here. So I'm just compressing that down. That's also gonna thicken this edge a little bit. So if I had 2 of these bowls that I wanted to put together to make a ball, right? A little extra on that edge so that I can slip and score and add those together. Works great. So that's nicely compressed. All is well. And then I'm going to grab a wear board and I'll just pancake flip this right out. Super easy. See you in a minute.